Hey, what's up, everyone? I have been tagged yet again for a 5 facts video, and this time it's by a user which a lot of us know who he is, for a good reason. Some people like him, some people don't. I happen to like him, and it's a user named stonedcommander, and I've talked to him quite a few times. And he did a video. He was tagged for 5 facts. Apparently, he had done a tag video before, but no one really participated. So he asked the people who he thought would participate. You know, he tagged these people, me included. Now, like I said, I've done one before, but I mean, who really only has 5 facts about themselves? So this one, I'm really going to go basic, and I'm just going to talk about my interests, similar to last time, but a little bit differently. Now, first thing, stonedcommander has a series that he makes called The Quest, and what it is it's him reading Bible chapters, and he's interpreting it by himself. You know, he's just reading it like, well, I think he's trying to say this here. Now that leads me to fact number 1. I have always had an interest in any kind of religious mythology, whether that be Christianity or, you know, old Greek mythology, Satanism, etc. I've always had an interest. I don't know what it is. I just really like learning about that kind of stuff, you know, especially like the Greek mythology, because they're dead religions. No one believes this stuff anymore. You know, the Roman mythology, which is pretty much the same thing, but I just always thought it was cool. Things like the Odyssey. You know, it was just interesting to me, you know, especially how the gods were actually interacting with people. Which leads me to a second thing. I've always had an interest in things like the darker side of life, cults, drug addiction, suicide. Now, maybe it was because, you know, I was a pretty depressed preteen, teen, whatever, but I always read those kind of books. Cults especially were interesting to me. Not just the religious cults, but like the Manson family cult. I found that just very, I wouldn't say disturbing. I mean, yeah, it's creepy, but I was just interested. Why these people thought the way they did. Which brings me to a third fact. Sociology. I think the reason why I was into these kind of things, cults, religion, especially cults, is because I like to know why people think the way they do. I don't know what it is. I always try to put myself in someone else's shoes. I want to understand why they believe something. I really do. I don't know why, but it's interesting to me, you know, like how people can be convinced to do something, like the Jonestown shit. These people were so convinced that this guy was right that they were willing to kill themselves. Same thing in, you know, Waco, the Davidians. They were convinced this guy was the second coming of Christ, to the point where, you know, they had like a whole armory, and they were murdered. Well, not murdered, but they were killed for this. And, you know, I don't know why they thought the way they did. I tried to do the research on it, but it seems like they're pretty much all the same. They find that someone who is very charismatic comes along and talks about themselves and how they're, you know, the savior and all this shit. Just very interesting. Another thing, I have always had a big interest, not as much lately, but still more than a lot of people, I've always had an interest in politics. Now, most people know, if you just go to my channel, I consider myself a Democrat. I am a registered Democrat. Now, I understand why people are Republicans, especially here in Ohio, because, you know, we pay taxes. Yeah, it seems like we don't get a whole lot of a return on them, especially when it comes to the roads in the winter. Oh, yeah, it's horrible. And I don't know, I've more or less been a socialist my whole life. Like, not like hardcore socialist, but things like universal health care, I'm for. Pretty much the way they do it in Canada. I think they really have a good system there. Like talking to Nathan Forrest and Abdultheimpailler and, you know, TLSlayer, it seems like they're like happier than we are. They really are. I don't know, it's just weird. Last thing, which kind of goes with the cult and religion in a way, and then also political stuff, is I've always had an interest since, I don't know, it's been for quite some time. I've always had an interest in Nazi Germany. I have tons of books on Nazi Germany. this kind of goes back to the sociological thing. Why did people believe this? Now, I understand certain parts of Nazi Germany. Now, military-wise, they were probably one of the greatest militaries the world has ever seen. They were fucking brilliant. They had almost nothing compared to what the Allies had. You know, the Germans had a few thousand. You know, the Allies had hundreds of thousands. And, you know, military-wise, I really think they were, you know, most of these guys were just soldiers. They didn't want to kill people who were unarmed, innocent civilians. They didn't want to do this. It was wrong to them. And that's one thing a lot of people, they don't like to admit, but it's true. Now, the political shit was utter bullshit. This whole, you know, racial purity shit, you know, while Hitler was, you know, preaching that, you know, killing off the Ukrainians, you know, even though they would have been great against the Russians because they hated the Russians and they felt a real threat from the Russians, you know, after, you know, all this, you know, when the Nazis needed troops, of course, you know, they were getting, like, Muslim troops, which weren't white, they weren't Aryan. But why did they do that? I try to understand it, like, well, because of desperation. But Hitler was just such an interesting character to me. And so was, you know, Heydrich and Himmler and Goering. People like this, they were just really fascinating to me because most of these guys were just madmen. They were just fanatics about pretty much nothing. Racial purity? I mean, no, I know that was the order of the day, but still, I always found it interesting. I just always wanted to figure out why these guys thought the way they did. And I never quite figured it out. I kind of have an idea, but I don't know. I still don't get it. Maybe it's because I'm so not like that. But anyway, that was your 5 Facts Stone Commander. Anyone, if you ever get tagged and you want to tag me, send me a fucking PM saying, yes, I am tagging you for this. Even if I've already done it, I will do it again. So, Stone Commander, like I said, I've already done one, but I don't mind doing another. And plus, you asked me to because you thought I'd participate. So, there we go. So, until next time, this is a Bad and 5, and you guys take it easy.